Yeah, they're here.
Okay, we'll get started. Parashat Vayishlach. One of the episodes in this week's parasha, a very tragic incident that happens with Dinah. The Torah tells us in the parasha, "Vatetze Dinah bat Leah asher yaleda leYaakov." It tells us that Dinah went out to the fields to check out the marketplaces to see how the malls are doing in the city of Shechem. And the next thing she knows, as she was a very attractive young lady, there was a fellow, Hamor, Shechem ben Hamor, that found her and took her and abducted her and committed terrible crimes. So Torah tells us the incident basically was cataclysmic. It caused such an uproar in the house of Yaakov Avinu. The children, the sons of Yaakov, they weren't children anymore, right? They're already adults and very capable. And the adults for their ages, 12, 13, they weren't that old. But they certainly were not happy how things went down, and they were not going to take it just standing there. So they turn to Yaakov Avinu and they come up with a whole plan. They have a whole wise idea of reminding and convincing Shechem and Hamor that they do Brit Milah, and otherwise we're not going to get married. If you want us to get married, we'll do the Brit Milah. They came and they wiped out the whole city. On the third day, all the men of the city were killed. So this is what happened, but the whole story was started, the Torah pinpoints, it began because of Vatetze Dinah bat Leah, that she went out, and this is the cause of everything. Now, why did she go out? So the Torah even tells us the detail of why she went out. And this takes us back to the earlier incident in this week's parasha, which is with Yaakov Avinu and Esav. And Yaakov Avinu is very much fretting the confrontation with Esav. This is 22 years that he did not want to confront him and to meet him. And the truth be told is Yaakov Avinu did everything that was necessary to alleviate as much as possible the confrontation. And he even taught us the lesson for life. There's actual midrashim that say that from this parasha, if you ever meet with a government official, do not meet with them until you read this parasha. Not the whole parasha, just the beginning of Vayishlach until the end of the episode of Yaakov and Esav. Why? Because it gives you lessons. The Gemara says further that one time Rabbi Leeor Dahan forgot to read the parasha, and he used to meet all the time with government officials. It's not like the Torah is against that. The Torah is for. Very much advocacy is important, especially when there's, the non-Jews, they don't always understand and appreciate what it means to have Torah, what it means to have yeshivot, what it means to have this. And sometimes you have to advocate to have them respected and to not infringe on the rights of the Torah learning and the fulfillment of the mitzvot. So one time Rabbi Leeor had to meet with Roman officials, and they suggested to him that they'll come back and accompany him. If he would have read the parasha right before thoroughly, he would have realized that Yaakov Avinu rejected that offer. He didn't accept when Esav offered to join along with him and let's go together. He said, no, you go ahead, I'll catch up with you. He didn't want to go with him. And Rabbi Leeor that time accepted the proposal of the Romans, and they sent 2 guards, and Be'emet, those 2 guards ended up robbing him. So he realized that's because I forgot to read the parasha beforehand that I didn't take the lessons of Yaakov Avinu. So there's so many incredible lessons here. One of them, of course, is the prayer, the tefillah of a person, the advocacy, in this case, Esav HaRasha, right? How does he convince an Esav HaRasha? He gives them gifts. He bribed them. They even asked once, they asked the Brisker Rav, they said, how's it right to bribe officials? Like, shouldn't that be something that's terrible to do? Like, we bribe officials in order for them to treat us, to leave us alone. He says, isn't that something that's a problem to bribe them? He says, no. First of all, anytime we have any situation, it's already tainted against us. The tilt and the slant is against us. The bribe is just to make it even. It is to balance the scale. So it should be fair playing field. Otherwise, they'll just hate us. The anti-Semitism by default. So that's how he explained it. But Baruch Hashem, in our times, we have civil liberties. It's not like in those times. It's not the same. It's a different culture. Back then, there was no such thing, civil liberties. The person that would bribe the most would get the benefits. And in order to save, a lot of times there were people taken, put into jails unfairly, and things like that. So in those cases, it's very legitimate. If someone commits a crime against you, and the only way you can get yourself, the perpetrator of the crime, the only way is through a bribe. You have to bribe an official, get the person out, have it. Of course, you're allowed to do that. There's no isu. It's not like you're being. Sometimes we have this mentality that, and it's a wrong mentality, of like we're very, very particular about not lying and not saying not truthful things when everything around you is being committed terribly, and there's an injustice happening. And by you not lying, they're able to perpetrate an evil against another Jew, against another person. So the opposite, like Rabbi Yaakov Yosef would say that sometimes the courts, they're very unjust. And they ask you, they solicit you, are you a witness? Did you see what happened? And you saw full well, you know exactly what happened. But you know that if you testify now, they're going to unjustly take money from one person and give it to another person. Not lefi the din, not lefi the halacha. Or in secular court even. Secular court, the whole court is for two Jews. For non-Jews, it's fine. For Jews, you have one Jew going against another Jew. Anything he gets in a secular court without a heter in bed din is called theft. It's called stealing. Even if he deserved the money, but he went to secular court and he didn't go to a rabbinic bed din, then he is stealing. As the Rambam says, even if danu dinehem kedin Israel, the secular court said, we're going to judge like the Jews judge, that's called stealing. It's still stealing because you have to come before a bed din. If the bed din then says in writing, it puts down, you know what? In this case, because the bed din is unauthorized, unable to execute a judgment, you can go to secular court. The bed din gave you a heter, that's a different story. Or if there's a Jew and a non-Jew, is it not going to accept the bed din? You don't have to go to bed din and subpoena him as a non-Jew. So you take him to secular court to save what you can save. But if you're talking about two Jews and they're going against each other in secular court, that's theft. Any dollar he gets from there is stolen money. So now they summon you to court and they say, you testified. Do you have any testimony? Nope. Oh, you're lying. No. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Because if I tell the truth, they're going to perpetrate a crime against that other person. Your mitzvah is to not tell the truth. You're not supposed to tell the truth. Because if the truth is going to end up being a fake, a sham of a judgment, then that's not called truth. That's not emet. Emet is defined, and very important concept in general. So in one yeshiva, the students wanted to work on a midah. Almost every month, they would take a different characteristic trait and they would work on it. So 1 month they would work on humility, the other one to not get angry, the third month to not be stingy, to go into be giving, the fourth month to do chesed. Always they had another one. 1 month they wanted to work on emet, on honesty. They said, let's work on emet. And the Rosh Yeshiva said, no, we're not working on emet. They said, Kvod Harav, why? Isn't it an important virtue? Chotamot shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet. HaKadosh Baruch Hu prides himself about the emet, about the truth, the honesty. Emet ve'yatziv, we say in the tefillah. It's a very important virtue. Why shouldn't we work on it for a month? He says, you can't work on emet. What do you mean you can't work on emet? You can't work on being honest? He says, emet is dictated by the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you perfect understanding the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then automatically you have emet. Because emet is the will of Hashem. To say over the will of Hashem is the emet. When it's that's one of the reasons why a person is allowed to change from the truth for Shalom Bayit. He said, what do you mean? But Hashem is emet. How does he change from the truth? He says, Sarah said that Ani zakanti when she said he wasn't. She said, my husband is old. And he said, no. She said, she was old. Hashem, you're not being honest. The answer is, honesty is defined by absolute right. What is right is called honesty in the Torah. It's not the way that it's defined in secular, vernacular, but that's the Torah's definition of honesty. Is the doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called honesty. So if you're summoned to court and they tell you, hey, did you see? And you saw, full well, you saw. You say, no, I didn't see anything. Because you know they're going to commit a crime with that information. You're not allowed to say. You're not allowed to be truthful. Because it's not called truthful. This is an important important concept in Torah. So it comes out, we come back to Yaakov Avinu, right? Let's get back to the topic. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה bidvaro. Yaakov Avinu, he confronts Esav in various ways. He confronts him with bribery, with gifts. You call it bribery, you call it gifts, whatever it is. In politics, they do this all the time. They have all these different types of gifts that they give, and we learn that from Yaakov Avinu. Whatever is legitimate, obviously, in today's day and age, you stick to legal. You don't take illegal steps. It's also a problem of chilul Hashem, and usually people shouldn't do that. So you stick with legal, but in the legal framework, there's a lot that could be done that generates. Even today, I think people took it out of proportions. Honestly, a lot of the things that they give billions of dollars to advocacy groups, like advocate for the state of Israel, advocate for this. I think they went too far. Like even Yaakov, he gave a gift to Esav, but it was a measured gift. It was a gift that he needed to do, and there was a very clear goal, very clear objective. But everything has to be done at the right measure, the right midah of how it's done. So almost like the world today has a very heavy focus on advocacy to the expense. They're not doing the other elements. Like Yaakov prayed and had advocacy and prepared himself for battle. He did all the things he needed to do, but like that component is largely ignored. There's like almost no tefillah element, and the highest elements, like sort of the virtue, is the most religious thing is advocacy. It became like a new religion almost. Like this is what we need to do. But no, it's one of the three, but it's not the be all and end all. So Yaakov understood that very well. One of the steps that he did, as the Torah describes, the Torah says, Vayisa etena vayar et hanashim. Esav comes into the picture. He sees the women. He sees the children. He goes to Leah. He goes to the boys of Leah. He goes to Rachel, the boys of Rachel. Okay. The one person that's not mentioned is Dinah. Dinah is not mentioned. So Rashi asks the question, V'Dinah echan hayta? Where was Dinah in the whole thing? She was also the daughter of Leah. Why isn't she mentioned? Only the boys are mentioned. Where was she? So says Rashi, let's see if I can find it quickly. It's nice to read it inside. So let me see if I can find it. Lamed Bet Chaf Gimel. Here it is. ואת 11 ילדיו. ודינה היכן הייתה ניתנה בטבע. Yaakov took his daughter Dinah and put her in a box. He put her in a big closet of some sort. ונעל בפניה, and he locked it up. שלא ייתן בה עשיו עיניו. Why did he do this? Esav would have seen Dinah. Dinah was extremely beautiful. He would have looked at her. He's a rasha merusha, an evil person. He would have wanted to marry her. He would have married her. And it would have been a disaster for everybody. So, and Yaakov wouldn't be able to refuse Esav. It's his older brother. If he would have persisted, and anyway, he couldn't stop him. Like if Esav decided he's marrying his daughter, Esav always got his way. Like he was the type of person that he made sure to get his way. He had his army, his troops, and he was going to make sure it happened. So Yaakov wanted to avoid that whole scenario. Let him not even see that she exists, and that way he doesn't see it, out of sight, out of mind. There won't be any problems. That was Yaakov Avinu's perspective. Lekach, says Rashi, it was a cute idea, but Rashi says it was a bad idea. Ne'enash Yaakov Avinu was punished for what he did. Shemina'a me'ehav, he prevented his brother from marrying her. And that was something that he was punished for. Why? Why would he be punished? Shemma tahazirenu lamutav, because it's very possible that Dinah would have opened up an Arachim seminar in his yeshiva, Emet campus, right? They would have opened up an Emet campus, and Esav would have been Hozer b'tshuva. All of a sudden, start keeping Shabbat, start keeping Kashrut. Yeah, Yonatan.
What about Allah Rasha Allah Shechina?
What about?
Allah Rasha Allah Shechina. If Esav would have been a bad influence on Dinah.
Right, but she would have made him a tzaddik. That's the point. It would have been tov la tzaddik, tov l'shchina. Dinah possibly could have converted him to become a tzaddik, And then once he's a tzaddik, everything's great.
How come she couldn't do anything to Shechem?
To Shechem,
Yeah.
as a goy. At least Esav was the son of Yitzhak, right? Who was Shechem's father? Hamor. He's a donkey, his father was. So it's hard. If your father is Yitzhak, maybe there's something to work with.
Amor, that's his name? He was his...
Yeah, that was his name. Goes to show you. They weren't that creative, I guess, back then. But this is why he was punished. V'nafla biyad Shechem. Now these are the key words over here. Dinah wasn't, it's crazy what happened as a result. Yaakov Avinu sinned because he put her in a box. But what was the ramification? What was the punishment for it? You put her in a box, you didn't want her to marry Esav? Okay, you know what's going to happen? She's going to end up falling into the hands of Shechem. You didn't want to give her to somebody beheter? She's going to end up falling to somebody beisul. That is severe. That's very harsh. And I want to ask a few questions. If you could bear with me, just a few questions on the simple Rashi, very basic Rashi. Question number one. Tell me, which crazy father, if any father were to come to me and tell me I want to marry my daughter off to this guy. This guy is a fugitive. He's in and out of jail every other Tuesday. He's robbing banks. He's going ahead and he's in charge of the whole mafia. What do you think, Harav? You think it's a good shidduch? I hit him over the head. Are you nuts? You lost your mind? What do you think you're doing? Your daughter is a tzaddikit. You're going to marry her off to a yeshiva guy. You're not going to marry her off to some crazy bum off the street. I'd rip his head off, this guy. What does he think he's doing? So I want to understand. Any father that keeps and abides Torah mitzvot, his number one responsibility is to do what? Yaakov Avinu has a responsibility to do chesed to Esav, his brother. He has a responsibility to do chesed to his daughter. Also, right? He has to do kindness with his daughter. You're going to marry her off to an evil person. You know what the Gemara says? A person who marries his daughter off, not to a rasha, to an ama'aretz, a person who's an ignoramus in Torah. It's like he tied her up and put her before a lion. That's what the Gemara says. So imagine if the guy was a rasha, not an ama'aretz, a rasha, he'd be punished for doing something. So what are you blaming Yaakov? He doesn't want his daughter to marry Esav. He's right. Why should his daughter marry Esav? She's not a seminary that she's here to be machzir people b'tshuva. She's not an emet organization. She's the daughter of Bat Yisrael, and your job is to marry to the best person you can find. So why is there any complaint about the conduct of Yaakov? Forget like the level of severity of punishment, which is like, whoa, but why should he even be punished? He should be rewarded for what he did. That's, I think, a very strong and difficult question. Even in Shulchan Aruch, just textbook, you learn Shulchan Aruch. What does it say over there? If a person had his daughter engaged, halakha lemaaseh, right there, black on white. You have your daughter, and you find the guy, and he is a good guy, midot tovot, tzaddik, everything great, wonderful. You say, you know what, this is great for my daughter. You have an engagement party. Shiduchin, they were mishtadech, and they said, you know what, we're going to make a wedding, it's going to be on this and this date, and they've already agreed, made commitments to each other. The two families got together, everything sisu v'simchu, Ashkenazim, they broke a plate, which makes it official, that the engagement is official, they write up t'naim, the whole thing. The rule is, choshen mishpat, you're not allowed to break that deal. If you decide I changed my mind, there's repercussions for changing your mind. You can't just break the deal. If you don't want to get married, you can't get married against your will. But there's going to be very serious repercussions. A lot of the money has to go back, and if anything was invested, and there's compensation, a whole package that happens from breaking a deal is a very serious thing. However, the halacha says, if the chatan decided that he's going off the derech between the engagement and the marriage, and all of a sudden he's no longer in yeshiva, Baruch Hashem, I got the girl I'm looking for, now I don't have to pretend. And he starts leaving yeshiva, and he doesn't even keep Shabbat anymore, he doesn't come to the Beit HaKnesset, he starts gambling, he's getting involved in all these different types of addictions, and he just totally unwinds. The halacha is, you call it off, and you're allowed to call it off, and there's no repercussions, and there's no penalties. Nothing. You're not on the hook for a penny, because you messed up. You went, and you're mitkarker, you got ruined. So Rabotai, if a person is committed to an engagement at the end, and the guy ends up going on a different path, you're allowed to break the engagement even though in general there's major repercussions for breaking an engagement, you're allowed to do it because he's not on the level that he's supposed to be. How much more so are you not supposed to get engaged to somebody that's an evil person? Like it's a kal v'chomer like times 10 that you shouldn't get engaged in the first place. You're allowed to break the engagement. Of course, I'm not going to set this up.
We're jumping the gun.
We're jumping the gun. What do you mean?
He didn't offer her as he would have left her out. He didn't offer her to himself. He could have taken her, but it's not like he was saying here she do for her to him.
I'm not getting your point. Again?
He put her in the tiva.
Right. So that's the criticism, right? That he put her in the tiva.
Yeah. So what would he have done? He would have left her out. It's like he was offering her as a shidduch.
But he knows Esav. He knows his brother. He knows him better than we do, right? He knew what his brother would do. Meaning it sounds very much, and this is why he was punished, because Dafka, the Torah knew that if he would have left her out of the box, she would have married Esav. And if she would have married Esav, she could have been Machzim B'Shua. He wasn't wrong with the assessment. It wasn't like, no, just leave her out and wish for the best. It's like, no, you leave her out, he's going to marry her. Like it was guaranteed. And the Torah says, yeah, you're right, he would have married her. But what's the problem? She would have been able to bring him back to Torah. But who says? Like, it doesn't say for sure. It's never for sure. There's no for sure. And he said, Shema. Rashi said, Shema, maybe. What maybe? Maybe not though. Well, I'm a father. I have to worry about her.
I thought the issue was because he was happy when he was playing her.
Oh, so you're saying the altar. You're saying that's the altar. You're a good student of Slabarka right here. Right? That maybe we should sign him up for Slabarka. We should sign him up, right? For that yeshiva. We have a good yeshiva for you. So the altar says like you're saying. That's his chidush. He says, it's not that he did the wrong thing. It's just the way he put in the nails, he was too happy. He was too happy. He's like, good. I don't want stuff to happen. He nailed it a little bit too hard. He should have done it with like a sadness. Like, I wish Esav, my brother, was on the level that he would deserve her, but he's not. It's terrible. Begrudgingly, I have no choice. He didn't. He's like, good riddance. He shouldn't have her. So that was, according to the altar, that was the problem. So really, it's very difficult to say what the altar says because it doesn't seem like that's what it's saying. It doesn't seem like, no, he did the right thing, but he shouldn't have hammered it exact. It doesn't sound like it. So it's a pshat, but I saw something very different, a completely different approach. Now, before I get to that approach, I want to raise another point, which a little bit more further back in history, we know that there was sort of a destiny in the Shidduchim. You remember? Yaakov, Esav, and Leah and Rachel. What was the makeup supposed to be? Leah was the oldest, and she was supposed to marry Esav, and Yaakov was the younger, supposed to get married to Rachel. And interestingly, it does say, many of the commentaries hold Leah and Rachel were twins. So there's a question, were they identical twins? There is a machloket. Some say they were identical twins, which is a big chidush, because you say, wait a second, so how come he likes Rachel and Leah has her eyes like that? The pshat was they were both extremely beautiful. Leah cried a lot. So she was a little bit, because of her crying, the eyes were a little red, but she was just as beautiful as Rachel was, according to that explanation. Some say no, Rachel and Leah were not identical twins, they were just twins. And as a matter of fact, like one was actually, there's midrashim that say that she was, Leah was shorter. Leah was shorter than Rachel. Why does the midrash say that? Because interestingly, one of the things that Yaakov Avinu wanted to avoid was Lavan's treachery. So when he made the deal that he's going to work 7 years and then he's going to marry Rachel, he knew that Lavan was going to play tricks. He's going to start saying, no, I'm going to come to the Bet HaKnesset and Rachel is going to be renamed to Leah and Leah is going to be named to Rachel and I'm going to give him Rachel and this is going to be the new Rachel. So he knew his tricks. So he said, no, I want Rachel. And don't give me some Rachel from the outside. Don't find some woman off the street and give me that Rachel. Rachel bitecha, your daughter, and not just your daughter, hakitana. I want the young daughter, so you don't start renaming. So you know what Lavan did? So Bemet, how did Lavan get out of the deal? He made a deal. How did he get out? He said, no. Rachel bitecha is all true. Kitana means the shorter one. So he redefines. No, I didn't say younger. Kitana means younger, but it also means shorter. And Leah was shorter than Rachel. So I gave him the short one. He renamed Leah to Rachel. He did that. He said, here's Rachel bitecha kitana. The shorter one, that's the Rachel. So even that, he had a trick. He's a trickster. Everything with him was just getting the edge. So that's one of the midrashim that says that Leah was shorter. Then there's a conflict because there's another midrash that seems to say they were the same height. So you have to say it's a machloket, it's a disagreement. It seems to be. I don't know how you would reconcile it otherwise. But let's go back to that. I just wanted to bring that out for one point. What did Leah do? right? Leah went ahead and cried and cried and cried because she's like, I don't want Esav. I heard terrible things about this man. I don't want him. And she prayed so much that eventually her tefillot were accepted. Not only did she marry Yaakov, she was the first wife of Yaakov through the power of her tefillot. Was Leah criticized or praised? Was she criticized for what she did? Praised. Why isn't there a criticism of Leah? I don't understand. Leah, you should marry Esav. What do you mean? What's your problem? Maybe you'll make him religious. What's the issue? No, chas v'shalom. He's a Esav, he's a Rasha. Of course I'm supposed to pray not marry. So what's the criticism on Dinah? What's the criticism on Yaakov? Make up your mind. If there's a criticism for not having a tzaddiket married to a Rasha, so then Leah should be criticized for what she did. Why are you doing this? Why are you praying? You should be machzekah b'tshuva. And she did the right thing. Leah did the right thing. So why was it wrong for what happened with Dinah? Again, like this question seems to come back. And it comes back again a third time because it says that, this is a little bit of a different question. It says that Yosef, Yaakov Avinu, the way the commentaries say that he put Dinah in a box, but he didn't put Rachel in a box. Now Rachel was extremely beautiful. Why did he put Rachel in a box? Because Esav would have just, he would have seen Rachel and he said, she's beautiful, I'm going to take her as a wife. So why Dinah got into the box and not Rachel? Oh, so the commentaries answer, very simple answer, very good answer. What are you going to say?
I was going to say that Dinah didn't want him in the box.
No, you're not answering my question. I'm asking something else. I'm asking why didn't Yaakov put Rachel in a box? So Alex is answering good, Mark's saying the same thing. No, Yaakov even realized there's a big difference, and this is what the Rishonim say. The Rishonim say, Dinah is not married, Rachel is married. So Esav had his limits. Even Esav wasn't going to take a married woman and just hijack her and say, no, she's my wife. He's not going to do that. But Dinah, who is available, he would. So that's the difference. That's why he didn't need to do that. Now that being said, that's what the Rishonim answer. At the end of the day, you do find that Yosef didn't really care for that logic. He said, I don't trust this Esav. And when Esav came to see Rachel and the children, it says that Yosef stood ahead of Rachel so that, and the reasoning was that Esav shouldn't see her and take her. So it means Yosef didn't even trust what his father argued that, it's fine, he's not going to take her. No, I'm not going to take that for granted. I'm just going to stand in the way and he's not going to see her. And Bemet, that's what he did. Yosef went ahead and stood there, and he just like Esav was not able to see because he was concerned that Esav was going to take her, even though she was a married woman. Okay, now my question comes back. If that was a valid solution, Yosef comes along, stands before Rachel to protect Rachel, why didn't Yaakov do that solution? Like, it's a lot simpler than putting her in a box. Just have one of her brothers. She has a lot of brothers. She has 6 brothers, right? Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun. They're all her brothers. Right? Dinah was from Leah. So they're all her brothers. Have one of them, or if you want 2, 3, make a whole huddle around her, right? And don't put her in a box. Why are you putting her in a box? So that's another question of like, if it was good enough for Yosef and Rachel, why isn't it good enough for Dinah?
But Yosef just blocked
the vision, so he shouldn't see her.
Completely, like he saw a glimpse and like they bowed, right?
No, it says he stood in front of her. She was smaller than him.
That's different. That's like an in case he's really such a deviant out in front.
Yeah,
but really
like
the main thing.
So this doesn't do anything?
The main thing is she's married. In this case, she's a single woman. You put her up.
Okay, fair. You could answer, but I'm going to try to. It's a pile-on question, right? We have a lot of good questions already, so we're just going to throw that in there. And final question, last question, yeah.
Could it be that Dinah would have been drawn to Esav based on what
Oh,
the
that's
rabbi said?
right. Dinah.
Oh, very good. Very good. So we're getting into the answer of the territory. Very good. So the next question, before we get to what Rabbi Leeor is saying, the last question is, the Rashi doesn't say he put her in a box and stop. It says he put her in a box and he locked it. Now, locking a box is interesting. Putting her in a box is okay. You don't want Esav to see her. So you say, okay, so he locked it so that Esav doesn't have access to her. So Esav knows how to go to Home Depot and break locks. He's very, very effective in breaking a lot more than locks, by the way. He's pretty good at everything. Like, a lock is not stopping him. If he's not, if the point is for him to not see her, that's one thing. If the point is, I don't want him to get access to Dinah, he's still going to have access. Locking it doesn't do anything. So whenever you lock something, Is the pshat is you're locking what's inside there from getting out. That's what Yaakov Avinu was doing. And in essence, this is what the Mefarshim explain. This is incredible chidush. But Yaakov Avinu didn't just not trust Esav. He didn't trust Esav. He didn't want her marrying Esav. But he also didn't trust Dinah. And that was a huge misjudgment on Yaakov's calculation. He says, I know her mother, and Leah was a yatzanit. That it said Dinah, like you said, bat Leah. It says, the language of Vayetze is a language that's used in another context. By Noach. It says by Noach, Vayetze Noach min hateva. So the Gemara says, just like that Vayetze was from the ark, which is also called a teva, this Vayetze, when it says Vatetze Dinah, she left to go to Shechem, was from where? From the teva. From the same, not ark, but it's the same word, it's the box that he put her in. And the pshat was, Yaakov Avinu didn't trust his daughter that she would make the right call. Meaning he was concerned that she would want to marry in Esav. So with Rachel, she's not looking to marry Esav. She's married. So Yosef, putting himself there, is to protect her from Esav. But he doesn't need to protect Rachel from coming and gravitating towards an Esav. With Dinah, Yaakov Avinu had a double concern. He was concerned that his brother would see her and she would see him and she would want to marry him. So it's true. He does have a responsibility to protect his daughter from marrying an Esav. He does, and that was fine. The fact that he, let's say, even put her in a box was okay, but you locked the box. You know what you're saying? You're saying, but Dinah, I don't trust you that you're not going to walk out of this box. I don't have faith that you'll be able to handle this test, and I don't believe in your capacity to handle this test. And that was a very critical mistake, very subtle mistake, because he's a father and he has that emotion of like, I just want it to be 100%. I don't want to take any chances. So it's very understandable. But at the same time, it was a terrible error, because what he basically told his daughter is, I don't believe in you. And when you say that to your own daughter, and you're Yaakov Avinu saying it to your daughter, what that does is completely debilitates her. What that means is now she lives her life knowing that Abba doesn't believe that I'm capable. And if my father doubts me, then I doubt myself. And then you lose your confidence. When you lose your confidence, then you lose everything. And it was a total natural repercussion that once she lost her confidence, she's sitting there in the box. The minute she got out and she goes to the city of Shechem, she lost her confidence. What's in Hebrew, the word is onis. Onis means the rape of a person. The onis, the concept of an onis, is not just a sin of immorality. That's part of the sin. It's a terrible part of the sin. There's an immorality, but there's also the sort of the stealing of the individuality of the person. The stealing of the it's hard to say what the exactly opinion. The individuality is a good word. Like that person's independence is robbed from him as a result of that. No, not innocence, independence. The agency is robbed from them. That's a good word. So basically, when a person's confidence is shaken, when their confidence is shaken, they don't have control over themselves. So in essence, she wasn't able to withstand confront who Shechem was, because she lost her confidence. It was broken by Yaakov Avinu. And therefore, the natural ramification is she's unable to fend for herself, and her individuality is robbed from her, which shows you to the level, this is a great tzaddiket, a woman in Am Yisrael, she didn't want it, but she couldn't protest it to the level she otherwise would have. And she would have been able to maybe not put herself in that situation, maybe something else. But why was she stuck in that situation? Because she was put into a box. And that's an important lesson for us as parents. It translates very directly to 21st century America. So much of our parenting is involving, and we could look at ourselves like not trusting. We don't trust our children, so we do this. We don't trust our children, so we're constantly doing a lot of things. There is such a thing called protecting, and that's important. We are supposed to like filter our phones, filter our computers. That's not a question of, no, let me put it out there and trust. No, that's for sure the case. But then there is the confidence in the people, like they're capable of doing, giving them responsibilities, giving them that. It's not anything tangible. It's sort of like that feel that you give over to a person, that I believe in you and that I think that you're capable of doing and accomplishing great things. and that I'll show you that I trust in you. It could be a father hiring his own son in the business, and the way he talks to him, the way he explains things to him is coming from a place of denigration, of like, what, you don't understand, what, you don't know, you don't get it, oh, you're hopeless. Like that type of a tone. It doesn't have to be any word. The tone and the impression, it carries weight. It makes a big difference. It seals the fate of the child in this box that's devastating. And to be able to get out of that, sometimes it'll take years of therapy. But a parent has to be so conscious that he's not giving over such a message to the child that will effectively destroy him as a very capable human being and accomplish what otherwise he would be able to accomplish. And that was a mistake if Yaakov Avinu, who's so far beyond anything of our understanding, a man of such great stature, fell in this trap, in this mistake, then it's very susceptible to us that we're going to go ahead and make that mistake. If we don't actually take the lesson from that, from the Torah is telling us this, because it's giving us that tool to realize that it's very important in our lives, in our children's lives, to guide them in a way that shows that we have confidence in them, in a way that shows that we absolutely believe in them and we're their biggest fans. And ultimately, those are the children that are the most successful. The children who feel that their parents believe in the whole world in them are the ones that actually are capable. They have the confidence, they have the skill set, they develop the skill set to translate into the reality of bringing it into the world. And the ones that the parents from a young age that you're useless, you're lazy, you're not doing anything, how come you're acting this way? It's a terrible mistake. You should never label your children anything but special. If you have a criticism, criticize an act. You did an act that was inappropriate. You should have done the dishes, you didn't do the dishes. You should have done it, as an example, right? Or your homework. Never label them, never put them in boxes, never put them in this mizgeret of you're not a successful young man, because that will decapacitate their ability to succeed in everything that they do. And that's the lesson, and that's a huge, important value that the Torah is teaching us in this week's parasha. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chaim HaKasher אומר, יצא הקדוש ברוך הוא זכוי ספר המצוות, שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידיר. אמן. אמן.